What is up, guys, and welcome back to a brand new video. Today we're going to be talking about F1 2019, F1 2020, basically just the F1 game franchise in general, heading into the future. I have quite a few suggestions that I'd like to see implemented into the F1 games to make the game more enjoyable, more of a long-term prospect, because currently my thoughts and opinions on the game is too easy, and it all gets done and over with all too quickly. So I think these changes would certainly make things a lot more enjoyable for people who want to play the game for longer. So you'll see this recurring theme about making the game more difficult in order to keep the longevity of the game going. So let's get stuck into it. First off, to make the game more enjoyable, to better the experience, we need faster AI upgrades. They seem to upgrade very, very slowly. There's been a number of implementations into 2018 which made the upgrade process go a whole lot faster for the player. We had resource point bonuses for meeting team objectives over the course of like 2 race weekends. So you get like 400, 500, 600 resource points bonus. After that, you get bonuses for beating your teammates in the rivalry. You'd also get bonuses for beating your rival in the rivalry. And I just feel like with contract negotiations, you can actually increase the amount of resource point bonus after every single race. So whether it be 0% all the way up to 75% bonus on the points you already get. So if you apply some of those things together, and if you have a good season and you drive well, the upgrade rate is absolutely ridiculous. I was able to take Sauber from being the second worst car to the best car by an absolute mile, a season and a half into the career mode. That's just way too quick. It's completely unrealistic. I just wish that the AI would upgrade faster and kind of keep up with that tempo to make things a bit more fair. Next up, we have failures for the player. This one I can't stress enough. We need to see failures for the player now. I've heard Codemasters say their reasoning behind not having this option in the game in the past, but I feel like it's time. The games are too easy now. I don't know if you're trying to cater for a really young audience, like 12 and under, who maybe can't drive as well, or can't handle maybe having a failure like 20 minutes into the race or something like that. But I feel like there needs to be an option now where we need to have failures for the player, where we have parts that have been on the car, maybe a race or two, and they have more of a higher chance of failing. We need straight up failures now, not a decrease in performance, not this huge warning system where you get to 80% and then, you know, you'll be a lot slower. Like, we need to have straight up failures now. Like, you see Daniel Ricciardo this season, he's had straight up failures in new components, so we need to see it happen now. And the biggest comparison I have right now to F1 2018 is F1 2006. That's my longest running series on my channel, and the reason why that is because the game is so brutal, it's so hard, it has character. Honestly, being brutally honest, I feel like the modern F1 games, in terms of career mode, they have no character. If the game is just too easy, and that's it, it's just too easy. They basically hand it on a platter to you and say, do you want a championship? Well, here you go, just play the game long enough, you'll get there. Like, honestly, it's so easy. The game is so forgiving. There's so many retirements for the AI and grid penalties and everything else that just hands you the championship on a platter, and yeah, it's frustrating. I want to be challenged. I want to be challenged more. That's why I get so bored with career mode early on, and that's why some of you guys get so bored with career mode early on as well. I want to bring up an example. My teammate in AOR, New Zealand Ryan, he won the championship with Sauber in the first season. First season. He had a ridiculous race early on in his career mode where he nearly won the race. I think he got second, but then he won multiple races towards the second half of the season, and he won the championship first time around. Didn't play career mode again. And, you know, that's a prime example of, you know, how to shoo away your audience. If you hand things to people on a plate, if you make it too easy to achieve the end goal, like within a month of the game coming out, then what is there left to do for the remaining 11 months of the game? If you at least make it harder, it keeps people playing the game longer. It makes that reward factor that much more enjoyable once you do win the championship, because you had to work so hard to get there. But anyway, I'll digress. Moving on, away from the making the game difficult bandwagon, we should have red flags back in the game. What happened to red flags? I feel like ever since the new gen consoles came out, red flags were just abolished, and they never came back. I don't know why that happened, because red flags are a pretty big part of an F1 race. They can completely change the game. Yes, they don't come out all too often, maybe once a season, if that, but when they do come out, it's a big deal. So I've had plenty of crashes in career mode, I've had plenty of crashes online which have warranted a red flag. Why can't we see them? Like, just not including a flag in general is outrageous to me. Like, how could, imagine not having blue flags, imagine not having yellow flags in an F1 game. It's outrageous to me. Next point, and this one's pretty obvious. Cody's will be working on this every year anyway, but it's worth mentioning. AI improvements. Just making them better at racecraft, making them more aggressive, I suppose, on the first lap, seeing if they can jostle for position a lot more. Don't follow other AI cars and myself in a huge train like they normally do. They're getting better with that, I suppose, but yeah, again, more improvements that need to be made to make the AI a bit more humanized, if that makes sense. And I think the biggest thing for the AI in terms of improvements that need to be made is probably their strategy, to be honest. The amount of times that we outdo them in terms of strategy is pretty ridiculous. They don't take advantage of safety cars as much. They do sometimes, but maybe they can make use of VSCs a bit more. Think about changing conditions, like don't pit for a new set of tyres when rain is literally only 2 laps away. That's just silly. Just do the calculations a bit more on a running basis, if that makes sense, and it should be alright. Like, the AI, a bit pushover, as well as all the things I've mentioned already with failures and AI upgrades. It just makes it too easy sometimes. Moving on, we need helmet customization to be a lot better. Can we please, for the next cycle of the game, have new helmets? I think we've been on this current cycle of helmets for the last 2 or 3 years now, so I'm getting pretty bored of those. I want to see more helmets. I want to see like at least 50 helmets, I'd say, that we could choose from different designs and change the colors of them. Yes, we can do that now, so that's a really good feature that you guys implemented not too long ago. But we need more helmets. If anything, we need sponsors as well to chuck on those helmets. They do look a bit bare, and it looks a bit silly compared to the driver helmets. There's just something missing, and it's definitely the sponsors. Just having a random design and then nothing on it kind of just looks out of place in the pinnacle of motorsport. Moving on, again, this is harping back to making the game more difficult. I think it's time for 120% AI, or at least maybe a dynamic AI difficulty that maybe gets harder as you go on through the career mode. Because, you know, at the start of the game, yes, the AI are very challenging, they're very difficult when you come to terms with a new game and maybe struggling with setups. I feel like as people play the game more, they'll naturally get faster, they'll start investing in setups, they'll do AI, they'll do upgrades to their car as well, and then all these things just make for, it's a snowball effect, and it makes people too fast. I think there needs to be maybe a natural gradient for the AI to get faster over the course of the season. Like maybe we just need 120% AI right from the outset, or maybe we could gradually somehow in the background just make them a little bit more difficult as the game goes on. I'm pretty sure like other games do that, where you play through a campaign and yes, the monsters or whatever you're trying to kill like is really easy to kill at the start of the game, but then it gradually gets harder. I think we need to have that kind of formula in our game just to keep the challenge there. Next up, and I actually got this one from Arav, so shout out to him. I think it's a good idea that us, you know, F1 YouTubers are all kind of, you know, talking about the same issues and hopefully, you know, reiterating the things that we want to see. And it's good that we, you know, kind of bounce ideas off each other so that these things do come in effect. But Arav mentioned this in one of his videos a few months back, and I think he said something along the lines of having team orders would be really cool. So if you're the first driver in the career mode, you could tell your second driver to pit now. You can tell them maybe to hold back, to push harder, use their tires more. I think that's a thing in like Motorsport Manager I remember playing back in the day. So if you want to be the architect of the team, and you want to like structure a way that you want the race to go and have a bit more control over things. And I think that's a really cool idea, and it just gives you a more incentive to be the first driver, because like Arif said, the only difference between the first driver and the second driver is the resource point bonus. I think there needs to be a little bit more that adds on to working towards being the first driver, so that it's worth your time grinding the game. Next up, I'd like to see AI driver interviews. That being in the press conference, whether you get a podium or something like that, or whether it's just in the press pen after the end of the weekend. I'd really want to see like a reaction to like what a driver says about me, for example. Like if we have an incident, like I have a clash with like Kevin Magnussen and he calls me a bloody idiot and I call him an idiot magnet, and we just bounce off each other and we get this rivalry going. Or on the converse side of things, if we're fighting for a championship with Lewis Hamilton and he says, oh, he's a really fast driver, I have a lot of respect for him, or if he says bad things about me, that'll affect the way that I drive against him. And if I say things to him about him, then that'll change his approach about how he races me in the future. So I think that's something that could be really cool to have a nice dynamic with not only, you know, reputations with other teams, but now we can have like a reputation with other drivers, and I think that'd really add to the immersive experience we already have in career mode. Next up, again, making things more difficult for the player. I'm all about trying to make the game more difficult. I've been inspired heavily by F1 Championship Edition, and that game for me has so much character. It's so rewarding once you beat the pinnacle of that game. So I just want to see this game be more difficult. I feel like this game, or this game franchise, just caters to maybe a younger audience, or an audience that maybe is not as good at playing F1 games, or new to F1 games. I just think some of these things would make it more enjoyable. But anyway, I'm waffling too much. What I'm trying to say is we need to restrict the team choices at the start of career mode. I feel like we shouldn't be able to just jump into a Mercedes or a Ferrari or a Red Bull. I feel like we should probably limit the top 3 teams to not being able to choose them. It gives players like more of a progression feel. Start off in a lower team and then work your way up towards being in a position where you can win the championship. I feel like there really is no point to jumping straight in Mercedes, gunning for the title in the first season, when the game is already easy enough as it is. It'd certainly give you something to work towards, and that's what I'm all about. Next up, we have probably 2 very ambitious ideas, but these are ideas that I've just been harping on about for the last 5, 6, however many years that I've been making F1 videos, and I want to bring this home again and just keep Codemasters and even Liberty Media on their toes, because we don't want this to go away. We want this to be the forefront of the F1 game and the features. When you look at the back of the game, you see that in bold text, driver transfers. Where are they? FIFA does it, NBA does it, like literally every other sports title does it. Why does F1 not have the ability to have driver transfers? It'd make the game, it'd make the career mode to see Lewis Hamilton driving for Ferrari, or somehow having the worst season of his life and he gets demoted to Sauber. Can we please see it happen? Driver transfers right now. And finally, we need to earn our way into F1, and that would be the way of GP2. We need some kind of junior formula, maybe just like a mini season, 5 or 6 races or 3 races, I don't really care. Just a way for us to, you know, have like almost like a tutorial, or like a, what do they call it? Is it like an epilogue or something? It's basically like in Forza, for example, where you have like the opening race. It's like you learn the ropes and you get a feel of it before you get thrown into the main game. Or in RuneScape, for example, it's Tutorial Island. Can we have our Tutorial Island be GP2? Maybe the final few races of the season, a few races to impress, to build a reputation, attract the scouts and just higher ups in Formula 1 teams, and then we'll see what happens in the off season. You know, what team we choose to drive for in GP2, whether there's, you know, any affiliates between GP2 and F1 with the team that you drive, for example, and just try to impress. I feel like that'd be a really cool way to introduce GP2 drivers in the series, and maybe to have that as a playable game mode in online. That'd be really, really cool to race in GP2 cars for a bit of a change, as opposed to F1 all the time. So just thought I'd throw that out there. GP2, we've been calling it for years. There's been rumours that it might be in the next F1 game or the game after that. with some videos that I've seen online, and driver transfers as well is one that's very ambitious, but one that doesn't really work too well with the current Formula 1 management with licensing and all that. So hopefully that can be changed very, very soon. I really want the community to put high pressure on Codemasters and Liberty Media to change the way that the F1 games have been handled. They've been restricted far too much in the past. Now with new management, with Liberty Media coming in, hopefully this means that Codemasters have more freedom with their license to do what they want and make the game that we truly deserve, to be honest. It's time for these things to be introduced. But guys, that's been this video for today. Hopefully you enjoyed. If there's things that I missed, feel free to put them down in the comments, and I might make a follow-up video to this where I talk about your points and really drive home some features that you guys want to see, or just improvements in general. I don't really care which, as long as we get the best F1 game we can get, then I'll be pretty happy with that. I think I'll make an online version of this as well. There is certainly a lot of online features and just stability issues that they're around that need to be addressed, and I'll certainly talk about that in a video to, again, make the longevity of the game a lot better. I feel like the longevity of the F1 games is getting worse and worse and worse, and it needs to be fixed pronto. But guys, that's been it for today. Thank you so much for watching. If I didn't say it already, leave a like, subscribe to the channel to see plenty more F1 gaming content. Until the next video, I'll see you next time. Also, cheers to Ara for an idea or two. I'll leave a link to his channel in the description. You probably already subscribed to him anyway, but YOLO.
You live a high life.